Hi everybody, how are you doing? This is your favorite host, Surinderjit Singh Rana, SAS Rana, reporting from my hometown, Chandigarh, which is 150 miles north of New Delhi. Today, May 24th, 7:07 hours UTC. We're going to discuss a wide range of topics from COVID-19, how the world is shaping up, to geomagnetic storms, basically sun flaring up with the major storms CME across the globe being felt, and other natural disasters. We're also going to cover how COVID-19 is coming up with new variants found across the globe, also covering up how the sexual predators population across the globe is sending its tentacles across and victimizing females and whatnot. So first, let's come quickly to our topic, which is coronavirus COVID-19. Basically, India has not been faring at all well so far, despite it's got quite good recovery, and despite the cases have tipped down to about 230k per day, which was reported for today, May 24th. However, the deaths, the fatalities are still way high. You know, the fatalities are for May 24th is 4,450 odd number. So this high number of fatalities per day is a cause of worry, and still India government doesn't hold any international conference despite knowing that India has turned into a biosecurity hazard and a disaster, COVID-19. So it's quite surprising how come situation in India is not under control and what's going on. However, once we try to find or dig deep into what's the cause, we understand that there are multiple variants, mutations which are quite circulating in India that doesn't seem to give any respite, and the vaccination drive from India government is too pathetic. It's not even 3%, folks. I think it's around 3%. So which is for 1400 million population. If you just have achieved 200 million vaccination, then it's still nothing, and that's single shot. Both the shots vaccination is, I think, not even 100 million. So that's the big cause of worry. Another is mucormycosis, which is spreading across in India, black fungus. And the cause of black fungus, mucormycosis, is supposed to be seen as disappropriate use of the lethal steroids or whatnot, just to boost up the immune system. So that seems to be the cause of worry, and for some reason, Indian stock markets, Indian financial markets are jubilant. If you can see the graphs for 5 years, for 1 year, for a year, or down the line for 3 months, it's all going up, only having one dent. So this seems to be like quite disparity. How come the financial markets are not registering the real picture on the ground? So why the cases have crossed 300,000 cases of fatalities? I think it's more than 300 fatalities right now, 300K fatalities right now for May 24th. So this seems to be quite a big number. And the cases definitely are springing back from the black fungus, which has reported more than 9,000 cases so far. And this black fungus, mucormycosis, is a big concern because most of the recovery patients after some time start feeling this new symptom, which is, development of fungus or a mold across their faces, which is basically again being back on the Indian vaccination drive, like how far it's successful or how far it's been a problematic. So this number of cases in India turning into biosecurity hazard has become major cause of worry for everyone across the globe. Now, another thing which is going on developing in India is the second storm, the biggest storm, which is to hit India on May 25th, 26th, to the coast of Bengal. Basically, states of Odisha and neighboring state of Bihar are going to be felt this impact of deadly new storm which is developing. And a week before, there was a storm which was reported in Bay of Gujarat, the area of Gujarat region, which not only decimated 600 over 600 roads, over 1,400 buildings were damaged, and a huge infrastructure loss, including more than 61 lives were lost just in a rig, which was outside in the outskirts of offshore drilling. So this has been a major disaster. The storms are pounding India like anything, and these storms are getting more violent and becoming more fearsome. The reason for this we're going to discover later on, folks, but this is something which is ongoing. Now, what we're going to see, how the COVID-19 has taken the toll to 300K, which is third in the line of maximum fatalities contributed by the nation. So first being obviously the US, which has crossed 500K long before. Now it's approaching 600K fatalities, but India is having 300K, which had a delayed first wave and second wave. And despite all the nations across the globe were having vaccinations from Sputnik V to AstraZeneca to Pfizer to Moderna to even UK releasing the vaccines, still India could not produce a vaccine or could not deliver the shots or could not manage to vaccinate people. It's quite surprising. This definitely is basically revealing how the India government has been silent or has been just a bay watcher on the increasing fatalities and mishandling of COVID-19 disaster. There's no doubt about it. And this black fungus has been targeting most of the COVID-19 recovery patient. And you can see more than 80% of the patients need surgery immediately. More than 80% of the patients. And that's the cause of worry. This means that COVID-19 disaster is not a big deal comparing to the black fungus, which takes the patient down completely. And there seems to be no recourse other than to have a surgery. And this surgery is quite invasive. So folks, this is something which is quite unique in India only. We don't see this happening anywhere in the world. And again, the root cause has to be figured out. Why come and how come India is facing such massive, viruses, disasters. However, India government is quick to react, and just to shut down the media telling the truth, it basically put a gag order, and it orders removal of all content referring to India variant. So anywhere where media starts referencing the COVID-19 mutations as India variant, India government takes stern action on them. What else can you say, folks, if this is not dictatorship? If you call it do you call it a democracy where, a media cannot even report the origin of the variant which happens to be the India? Take, for example, B.1.617.2, which already had a big geopolitical ball game with Singapore, because Singapore raised this issue, red flag, 2 weeks back, and India government, New Delhi government was quick to refer it back. No, it's your localized virus or mutation. It's a Singapore variation mutation, which is impacting the Singapore. Singapore Health Ministry quickly raised and isolated this B.1.617.2 as an India variant. And then India government later on accepted, yes, it's an India variant. So, folks, what I say is that India government can befool the whole world, but India government can't befool viruses. Yes, folks, that's the only thing I can say, because the amount of deceit and deception India government is circulating over not labeling its own variant as India origin variant, and asking for a gag order to the media not to report India variants and viruses is quite shady thing. It's revealing how India is basically obfuscating the variants and the viruses being produced in India. So this guy is something quite unraveling, and you can see, this whole report was prepared to me, and I had posted on my Facebook, which is fb.com/sjsrana555. So I had put this report that this is something what India government is doing. It can befool the whole world, as it does mostly, but it can befool the viruses. And viruses are reckoning back, and you can see the impact of GDP of India is being felt. Moody recently cut the GDP for India growth to 9.3% FY22 from 13 plus percent. Yes, folks. Within few months, you can say down the line 3 months, Moody was maintaining the rating for GDP for India in double digit, which is 11%, falling down from 13%. But now it has cut to GDP 9.3%, and I think it's going to be below 9%. This was my prediction for almost 7-8 months before even they started predicting it, when I predicted hashtag MAY 2021 NPW, which is New Pathogens War, which was predicted in December 2020. So there itself, I've started predicting on my sites and on my content video, YouTube video, which you can search from sjsrana on YouTube, that India GDP is not more than 9%. So folks, we have to be careful how India government is disseminating the information or misinformation, I would say. Another cause of worry recently is there are planes, fighter jet planes flown by Indian Air Force, which are recently found to be crashing again and again on residential zones. This was a recent mishap which occurred 2 days back, and MiG-21 plane was being under training, flown by Indian Air Force personnel, which landed again into crash landed into a residential zone. And this is third such incident in a year for 2021. So the question is, folks, why are Indian Army military not careful, or they are being so callous that they fly the airplanes and their fighter jets so close to residential zone that they keep crashing on residential zone? Not only they are risking the planes or their life, but they are risking life of civilians. Civilians have got no concern what you do with military. Military should remain intact with the military zones. Where there is DMZ, demilitarized zone, the military should not interfere, not even enter. It should be put under a civilian notice. So somebody has to take a public interest litigation and file it on to these military personnel or on this branch of India government, where these planes are crashing on a residential zone and causing havoc. So this being third such incident, and I see no other media outlet even blaming on the Indian Air Force that why they are being so callous, that they keep crash landing on India residential zones. This incident is third such in a case, and there are much more things going on, folks. If a military is supposed to protect the citizens or civilians, it's not supposed to use its technology for the harm's way of civilian. No matter what the cause may be, it has to go through the judicial process, which is through the courts. Many times, the EM weapons, electromagnetic weapons, I tell you, have been found misused by Indian personnel, army personnel, for their own personal grudges and own personal vendetta towards the residents or the civilians. That's been also noticed in India a lot, and that's another issue which I will delve deeper into it, why the EM weapons, which is electromagnetic weapons of military grade, are being used on civilians. They're spying using those ultrasound and electromagnetic weapons. They're also radiating the civilians, for their own personal vendetta towards someone. That's another cause of worry. So coming back to the point, where do you see India GDP? Because India is rated as one of the top emerging markets from FY21, but now onwards for FY22, all the basic major analytics, be it Fitch, be it Moody, be it S&P, they're all downgrading India a big way. The reason for downgrading India, folks, which I will reveal now, is not only that it is having underperforming its markets, but it's having massive unemployment, which they don't report. India government is quite tricky and deceptive on this. When anything comes fall short on their own shoulder, they simply go silent. When India government goes silent, you should be very worried. You should be very careful that they are hiding something, they're concealing, they're being deceptive. That's how they go silent. The unemployment is more than 250 million. My understanding is above 300 million is the unemployment which India government is hiding and concealing. And that is the skilled workers. The unskilled workers, the laborers, it's unreported. Also, there is a big mess with the loans. That's another topic which we're going to cover. So now we're going to jump back to how the whole cosmos, the whole system is reverting back with some indications in the signs of heaven, where we are seeing some major developments coming shape. Specifically, we'll note that how the flares interact with people, the environment here on Earth, and we're going to see how things change here on back to Earth. Recently France reported a new variant which was quite concerning, which is VOC 201/484Q. Yes, this is a new variant which has been reported in France, and it's a very rare, and it's causing a lot of fatalities also in France. But since it's rare, so it's been very, you can say, contained. However, we got to see what's the impact on these virus origins, the variants, the various mutations with relate to the geomagnetic storms being presented by the sun. Sun recently blasted CME, 2 or 3 CME, which was C category. There are flares, which are rated as C, M, and X category. And C categories we have seen a lot. I think we're going to see a M category flare also. You can see this recent one, which happened to be on 23rd of May, 11:23 hours UTC, impacted mostly Europe and Africa zone, including Middle East and India. So these flares have been increasing quite in number, and these flares are cause of concern because they disrupt the radio signals, the geomagnetic shield of the Earth, which is called the shield, which prevents from ultraviolet, from cosmic rays to the planet Earth. Those shields have also been going down, and I'll tell you folks, there is a big thing going on in Indian magnetic poles. There seems to be a flip which is occurring, which is quite concerning, as this is not being put up onto the mass media. But however, this flipping of the Earth magnetic field is going to cause catastrophic disruptions and destructions, decimations across the globe. And if this occurs within our lifetime, which we expect it to, we're going to witness something which is apocalyptic nature, catastrophic climate changes will be witnessed. Also, what we see is happening similarly on Sun. Sun also seems to be flipping the poles. It also has a magnetic north and a south pole, and there also seems to be some huge activity going there. So all these are impacting the people, the environment, the flora and the fauna, the animal kingdom, everybody on planet Earth. And this is something which we're going to see intensify in years down the line. And if you see these shields, if you see these radio bursts which is occurring, this is quite phenomenal, and this is producing weather disturbances. Recently, you see how 21 tragically marathon runners died in China. This was also another tragic news. You can just have a look at it, how tragically it happened. So, folks, we bring back our attention to planet Earth. And recently, Jeffrey Epstein, evil empire, who allegedly suicided in the prison, now is being held accountable. And the prison guards, basically, who allowed him to have his own way of living lavishly while being on suicide watch, is being questioned and is being put up into the prosecution. The US prosecutors have put up these prison guards that how they were allowing this Jeffrey Epstein to suicide. So we see, how people across the globe are misusing the authority and the power. And recently we find there was a good book being released by Urmi Bhattacharya of India on how, on 5 cases of sexual assaults, basically depicting how India males predators population are, how India males predator population is basically preying upon girls and females, and the sexual enslavement of minor girls and females across the pan India has been exposed by this new book which has been released by Urmi Bhattacharya. You got to read this, and it's basically trying to tell how the disadvantaged victims, the survivors, females who are disadvantaged or who are not from the poor economic background, are being enslaved by the men who are having influence or affluence or having some political power or having some sort of big amount of money. They are buying these girls literally, folks, in India. And this massive sexual predators population are thriving because of the shadow government, or you call it human trafficking empire in India. Human trafficking empire in India is so wide that they just bring tip of the iceberg. Recently we saw this, how the sex racket was busted in Mumbai, two arrested, and many females, including a minor girl who was being trafficked daily, sold to many sexual predators of India, is running in India. Folks, this news doesn't make flash around the globe. This news is quite important and critical, and the shadow government or the human trafficking empire in India is quite thriving. It's basically allowing massive sell-off of India females. Let's go to another story which is quite revealing.
I've finally been believed and validated, and I feel that our system works, or at least it did for me.
For the first time in as long as she can remember, Alicia feels safe enough to tell her story. It's a story of horrific abuse within a wealthy family who seemed to have everything.
We had a beautiful home, we had wonderful holidays and experiences. I think from the outside looking in, I had a perfect childhood.
But inside the family home in the affluent Perth suburb of City Beach, things were far from perfect. Alicia's father, Mark Nodwell, a successful physiotherapist, sexually abused her between the ages of 4 and 8.
My personal reality was that from a very young age, my father began sexually abusing me at home in the evenings when he got home from work. At the time, I was so young that I had no idea it was unusual. I knew it was painful. I knew that it hurt, and but I guess I assumed that it was normal, that all dads did this to their or with their daughters.
On paper, everything looked just right, but it wasn't.
No, far from it.
The actual core of our family unit was very broken and very sad and very distressing and very isolating. It was not a happy family to be a part of a lot of the time.
Looking back now, her mother and older brother Scott can see there were warning signs. But at the time, they had no idea about the sexual abuse.
We all give each other the benefit of the doubt in society. We assume that everyone's doing the right thing. And this kind of perpetrator, they take advantage of that.
Alicia herself was too young to understand, let alone articulate what was happening, but there were red flags.
As such a small child, I did experience quite acute pain, chronic UTIs, chronic constipation.
The psychological impact was profound, leading to 3 suicide attempts, the first when she was just 12. During a mental health admission at Hollywood Private Hospital in 2004, Alicia's hospital notes show she spoke with nursing staff about sexual abuse she may have suffered as a child. But this was before mandatory reporting was introduced for health workers in WA. Several years later, Alicia became a parent herself, a game changer that prompted her to finally go to police.
Holding my baby and trying to reconcile that with my own biological father.
So it's quite saddening. The story is quite saddening and traumatic experience. Even in hearing, you can understand the plight of females and women's and the survivors, the victims of human trafficking empire, how they feel, how they go through. I would encourage everyone and encourage to read this book. It's quite interesting to read such accounts of India females, how they muster the strength to even tell, the India father-daughter rape is another pandemic which is quite
kidnapping is now
blowing
speaking
apart.
out with her mother about the terrifying experience. As ABC's Victor Okendo reports, the girl's quick instinct is being credited for saving her life.
This morning, the 11-year-old seen in this video fighting off a brazen kidnapping attempt, telling GMA overnight only one thing was on her mind as she fought off her attacker.
Will I die today? Will I get to live the rest of my life?
Her mother, Amber Bunnell, emotionally describing the attack that happened in broad daylight as the young girl waited for the school bus.
If I would have lost her yesterday, the chances of me getting her back would have been very slim. She was almost kidnapped, that the guy grabbed her by her throat. He had a knife. He drug her to the ground, that she was able to knock him down.
That's when 11-year-old Alyssa took off, running to the nearest adult she could find. Experts saying her instincts saved her life.
It's amazing that she was able to see this dangerous situation, avoid it, but she really understood that this is a bad situation that she was in, and she knew that she needed to fight to get away from it.
Authorities say Alyssa's quick thinking helped police identify her attacker after she smeared blue slime on her abductor's arm, a tip she and her mom picked up from watching Law & Order.
We watch the shows Law & Order Special Victims Unit, and one thing is, in them shows, they're always talking about how you can, if they would have left evidence.
The man charged with her attempted kidnapping, 30-year-old Jared Stanga, appearing in court Wednesday. He allegedly approached Alyssa once before, about 3 weeks ago. Bunnell says since the first encounter, she's walked Alyssa to school every day, only missing Tuesday for the first time to tend to her infant child. This morning, still feeling a wave of emotions.
It's creating guilt for not going out there. I mean, but I can't let that tear me up because I was going out there. None of this is not my fault. It's not her fault. This is that man's fault.
So it's quite tragic and quite revealing how this minor girl exposes this predator, and we got to be very careful and on a watch out that such predator population across the globe are increasing in number, from Jeffrey Epstein, which was quite famous, running evil empire, who used to abuse hundreds of minor girls per month, which is quite evident and it's been documented. And you know how these evil empire gets co-conspirators like Ghislaine Maxwell, who was assisting evil empire of Epstein. And such is the case and story with every other female survivor who tells her story. We got to listen it carefully, and this is something where we got to see how we're going to make this world better place for everyone, because there is cause and effect for everything which is going around our globe. We got to be just observant of what's going on and what's the reason. Are we causing any malefic karma which is changing the environment across our globe, our environment across where we live? Is there something we can change? Folks, this is some introspection I would leave you to self ponder and self query yourself. What is changing on planet Earth? What can be done by ourselves, the change we can bring, so the change we see around what we like to see? These are some quite revealing and quite, soul-shaking questions which we got to understand. This soul search has to be done by ourselves, and we cannot blame anything on anybody else. Also, we find how the imposters across the globe are thriving now. You can say this recent update from CEO of Airtel, having more than 300 million subscribers, warning that cybercrime is increasing, and they find their phone numbers being misused a lot by imposters and impersonators. We are quite aware that India imposters are world famous. The impersonators, they can impersonate anything. They have been calling US impersonating as IRS CRA agent, and these imposters from India can do anything over the phone call. So you got to be careful, folks, with a phone call you receive. We also noticing that phone spoofing technology is being used, where you can emulate any number. You can call from any number. It doesn't matter who owns the number. Also, deepfake videos are being produced by imposters, which are basically befooling the world. So got to be careful, folks. I leave you here, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good, healthy spirits, high mind, body, and spirits, and let's hope we come out of this COVID-19 disaster with a healthy spirits.